Well, Max, Formula One is famous for posturing and politicking. Some people love that about the sport, but for the first time it really feels like there's a serious threat to the future of Formula One. How have we ended up in this position?
Well, the fundamental problem is that the teams, some of the teams, want to take over the whole financial side from Bernie, from commercial rights holder, and also the regulatory side from us. They feel they would like to run the whole of Formula One, and quite obviously we don't agree. I mean, the money is Bernie's problem, but as far as the regulation is concerned, we've been running the championship for 60 years, and we intend to go on running it. If they want to start their own series, they can, but it's not the Formula One World Championship.
The noises that we're hearing from the teams is that they've done all that they can. They feel that they have bent over backwards to help the FIA and to try and make compromises to make the whole thing work, and quite frankly they have no appetite for compromise anymore. They've gone as far as they're willing to go. The ball is in the FIA's court. So what happens next? Because as far as the teams are concerned, what happens next comes from you.
Well, you see, that's unfortunately a complete distortion of what happened. The real quarrel is all about how much is spent, and we're saying it's got to be reduced and it needs to come down to a figure which everybody knows. Now that is all based on work that was done with the teams between January 2008 and June 2008. The whole system was agreed with them, and the only people who disagreed with that were Ferrari. And the only argument then was going to be about the figure. Now they're pretending that this was something I dreamt up, or the FIA dreamt up, and it's something sort of dictatorial. In fact, it was all agreed with them. And it's a completely determined set of rules agreed by the chief financial officer from each team, as I say, a year ago. So it's actually all nonsense.
Can you understand the confusion there of the fans? Because the teams are telling us that they are willing to make cuts. They realise that Formula One is too expensive. The FIA obviously think that Formula One is too expensive. Where is the problem here? It's almost like you're both entrenched and you both want the same thing, but you can't achieve the same thing.
Yes, I mean, the difficulty is this, that they want to say we will reduce costs and we will do so in a way that suits us. And we're saying, yes, but by how much? And well, we don't really know. We're not really going to say that. We don't want to say anything specific. It's all very vague. I mean, and then they didn't want to move anything until the 31st of December 2010. So it's almost 2 years away, and then it would only start. We're saying it's much more urgent, and some of the teams are saying it's much more urgent than that. So it's really a question of not focusing on what needs to be done, which is a clear reduction according to clear rules, which they themselves thought out. Now, the trouble is that when we're doing something like this, it's very easy to confuse the issue. But the basic issue is very simple. We cannot go on spending the sort of money that's been spent. We must be clear at how much we can spend, because you can't say a vague figure, because then the team doesn't know how much they can spend. They don't know how much the others are spending. The other side of it is that they want to achieve cost reduction by restricting the technology on the cars, rather like we already have on the engines. We're saying this can't go on because you simply cannot freeze the chassis or just stop progress with the chassis. If you allow unlimited expenditure, then they will spend a fortune on the chassis. So what we're saying is limit the expenditure, and then a clever engineer within that expenditure can do whatever he likes on the chassis. Now, it's a much more logical approach, but that's all been lost in this suggestion that we're somehow dictating everything to them. Final point is that we have made concession after concession to try and accommodate them. They keep saying no, but even then we have a meeting with them, for example, on the 11th of June, agreed everything with Red Bull, Ross Brawn, Ferrari, and even Toyota there. And then when they got back to the office, the others, what we call the loonies, tore it up. And so you spend the whole day agreeing something, and then they said, but we don't agree afterwards, even though 4 of the teams were there. Then the following Monday, there was supposed to be an agreement about the finance. Our people sat down with their people, and they said, oh, we can't discuss the FIA's rules, notwithstanding that these were the rules they themselves had evolved the previous year. And so you'll get into this complete Alice in Wonderland, where they simply won't talk about any progress, and then they pretend it's us. Now, obviously, if you're an outsider, you say, well, they say this, you say that. But the facts are really very, very simple. We laid everything out. We put it all in correspondence. They have no answer to this, so they simply parrot fashion keep saying the FIA dictating, or the FIA, or I'm dictating you, and trying to tell us what to do. It's not that at all. We're trying to get the thing in order exactly along the lines that were already agreed before.
You mentioned dictating a few times in that sentence. Governance is the way that the teams are referring to this. When they say governance, do they mean that they want Max Mosley to step down as president of the FIA and then they'll be happy?
I don't know, maybe that's what they'd like. Of course, it's not up to them, it's up to the FIA. But that said, they talk a lot about governance, but what they really mean there is the way the rules are made and the stability of the rules. Now, that always used to be governed by the Concord Agreement, and we've all been talking about a new Concord Agreement for 2 or 3 years. The last one ran out at the end of 2007. Now, we've said to them in recent days, don't let's go on with this discussion that's gone for 2 years about a new Concord Agreement. Let's simply take the governance provisions that were in the 1998 Concord Agreement that lasted for 10 years, everybody was happy with, everybody signed up to repeatedly. Let's take them, put them in place, then governance is taken care of. They having been put in place, we can then at leisure discuss, if you wish, a new Concord Agreement. No, we don't agree with that. Well, it's completely unreasonable. They operated under those governance provisions for 10 years, and nobody complained.
On the subject of governance, your job as the president of the FIA is to do what's best by Formula One. If you stepping down as the FIA president meant that the FOTA teams would sign up, that Formula One would be the championship that it still is, would you be prepared to do that? Well,
it's not even a question of that. It's a question of whether they would sign up to rules which work. Whether I'm there or not really makes no difference at all, because if you remember, these rules, the rules that they're quarrelling with, went through the World Council on, I think it was 24-2 majority. And these are the national sporting authorities. And also we have to think of the interests of motorsport as a whole. Anything that would help motorsport as a whole I would do, including, I don't suppose I'm sort of swimming the channel, but I do sort of most things that I could do, including leaving, certainly. But that's not the issue. The issue is they want to take over Formula One from the FIA on the one side and from Bernie on the other. And all I am is an obstacle to that, as indeed Bernie is. And if they could get rid of me, they would then want to get rid of Bernie, and they want to get rid of anybody who wouldn't give them what they want.
But if the team's made it clear that no Max Mosley at the FIA meant we would continue, would you be prepared to step down?
If they were prepared to continue according to the rules, which is what they won't agree to, certainly, because...
So you'd sacrifice yourself to save Formula One?
Well, I wouldn't yes, put in that way, but the thing is that anybody would do that. Anybody would do that if they're interested in something. They would certainly always put the interest in front of themselves. But it's a completely academic question, because the argument is actually not about me, whatever they may say. The argument is about the rules.
It seems stunningly complicated to try and work out what has and hasn't been discussed. You've got an incredible brain to remember exactly what has happened over the past few months. But the situation that we're in now is that, as the FIA, you have Williams, who've signed up unconditionally, you have Force India, and a couple of new teams as well. FOTA have got the biggest teams, the biggest stars, the biggest names, and from what we've heard, discussions already going on with various circuits and various broadcasters. It feels like FOTA are in an incredibly strong position here.
This is absolutely an illusion, because you see, it's a little bit like me saying, in 2010, I'm going to be heavyweight champion of the world. Well, I can say that now, and nobody can really quarrel with that. They can have their doubts, but it's not till I've actually got to get in the ring that people realise it's nonsense. And none of this actually comes to a head until we get to Melbourne in 2010. So all this posturing can go on, which is very, as you said, very much Formula One. And they will continue doing this, no doubt about it, in the hope of getting what they want, which is their degree of control over, as I say, the sport on the one side and the money on the other. But the reality is that when it comes to it, the teams will not go